talent acquisition, global leader for training and development, global HR business partner, and HR strategic initiative leader across businesses in US, Europe, and rest of Asia. As a passionate teacher, he spends his weekends with some of the best-known premier B schools in India and abroad. He also holds honorary board position in multiple engineering and business schools. He's a mentor and coach for many young CEOs and help in their entrepreneurial ventures. His service towards the education sector is very dear to him, and he has volunteered to support more than 100 primary school underprivileged children every year. He loves to play tabla and was an All India Radio's Bangalore artist at a very young age of 13. He's here today to deliver his insights on changing business landscape under preparedness. Sir, thank you for your valuable time. The podium is all yours now.
All right. So team, good evening to all of you. I know it's a Saturday evening after a holy celebration yesterday. I'm sure most of you are extremely tired, and I hardly know some of you. Maybe I've interacted with Nirdesh for very recently. Other than that, the person who just introduced me is the person known to me now. Otherwise, I'm not known to any one of you. So I will keep it simple, short, and maybe a conversation which can help us to really build context of the industry, and then maybe some snippet of whatever little we know, we will discuss in detail as we go forward. I've joined through two instruments purposefully because it's been torrentially raining out here, and I might potentially have an issue with my PPTs coming in and going. So, just happened when your intro got over, the power went off. So that's why I kept two instruments. So, bear with me, and I will join through multiple instruments. Now, today, the first piece of my presentation, maybe about first 15 minutes, I'll give you some insights on what's really going on out there in the industry. From a perspective of an individual who's working, an individual who has taken a break for studies like XLRI, an individual who thinks that he can value add to the world of business. That would be the first value proposition. And then we will discuss a couple of conversation pointers which can make us survive in this competitive world, both from a standpoint of being extremely good at what we do to, how do we really shape up our career. So feel free to have this conversation, free-flowing conversation. Just give me a minute. I'll just present my screen. Yeah. When we look at ourselves and when we look at our generation and the past generation, one key factor I think all of us have to remember, I think our forefathers have been working with corporations or working for someone in the 40s and 50s and 60s, I think largely for sustenance. There comes a generation, which is our parents' generation, wherein they wanted somebody like us to go and have wonderful education, and then extremely fulfilled in terms of gratifying and satisfying oneself with having something for their kith and kin. I think as we move forward in the last 5 years and the next 25 years, at least from my 26 years of experience, I can tell you for sure, I think those identity which is infatuated with brand, tenuity, long time investment of time to an organization or people, I think slowly eroding. People are clearly identified themselves. Loyalty is to the skill rather than to the brand or the equity which is being given by an employer. Doesn't survive at all. That concept is eroding so fast that I'm having a set of people looking forward for a mindset of fulfilling their 3 or 4 needs by giving loyalty to multiple people in a given time or in a given day. Somebody wants to make use of their communication skills by being RJ in the morning, and maybe afternoon playing guitar for a 5-star restaurant, and evening coming back home and writing content for a content writing organization and becoming a fan commentator by the night which he ends. I think very clearly a yardstick for skill and identity is emerging extremely clearly out there in today's landscape of employment. That's why the definition of work is certainly changing. The second argument of building organization for future by having leaders having those design thinking and their ability to be strategic in giving value proposition to the organization by having a strong team of exec management and senior management, I think has little value today. The value is coming out of the collective intelligence from the bottom, and you're going to see a future where the collective intelligence is going to rock or make significant difference to how do you survive in your ecosystem of business, given that largeness and smallness of business do not justify market equity and survival. 60 years of change has happened in the last 5 years, and you will find significant amount of people moving in a direction wherein agility, speed, and the velocity of doing business has no context of the past. Absolutely no context of the past. If you have history of doing business for 60 years, doesn't have relevance to the next 5 years. I think history has proved that in the last 5, 6, 10 years. So what does it mean to all of us? I think the term called social, really changing the patterns of output coming out. Your ability to be having competitive advantage by having data and analytics seemingly taking over, I think, intelligence of certain few leaders at the top. Global mobility, anybody and everybody can work out of any other zones, time zones, is a global reality. 75% of the people are willing to move across the globe. And finally, I think more and more you will find a lot of independent workers coming and telling us, look, there is a format of work wherein I can value add to your top line and bottom line. Don't brand me as an employee, belong to you. A lot of insights there in terms of independence of work. Now, I'm not oversimplifying this word called work. I just want to tell you, I think skill is taking that pedestal today, which is taking away tenuity, brand equity, my ability to work for a consulting firm, and I want to work for a Tatas and Birlas. I think slowly it's moving away from the gratifying unity which we had in the last 3 generation, which has being in the space of organized sector. I think it's changing drastically. So your whole dynamics of work today, seemingly you can have the 5th and the 6th quadrant for us to discuss, but I think social is changing, the way we think, the way businesses are, how competition landscape is changing, who kills who, small and large has no meaning, one can eat each other, big data seemingly or the analytics piece seemingly making the decision, and generating the business intelligence. And of course, global mobility, people are not shying away. So a couple of insights for students of, executive management, as well as, hardcore flagship program who are taken in Excel. One of the key things which you need to understand as students, both having experience and not having experience, some of you have significant years of experience, between 5 to 20 years. The fact is, these terminologies on the left-hand side has to be well understood in terms of scalability and how do you apply that in action. I think that's going to be one key reality for all of us to understand. So our ability to understand skills from a standpoint of strategizing it for business and using that in a given point in time, seemingly going to take a lot of your time. So whether it is digital experience, smart working space, business platforms, or leveraging hardcore technologies such as cloud, IoT, HMI, and automation. I think if you take all these spaces which are there, one realization for me, for sure, it is agnostic of sector today. Whether you are working for a large-scale manufacturing company or a dairy manufacturing company, or you are in retail or airline, or you are working for an IT organization. Technology seemingly is rock bottom of the pyramid, not icing on the cake anymore. So not having it at given point in time, seemingly losing your charm of really value adding to the organizational growth, or organizational growth in the context of your presence, your own growth in the context of the organization. Technology seemingly is the rock bottom of the pyramid, which all of us are going to see for the next 20 to 30 years. That's one issue. The second storyline which I have for all of you, which I think you need to really constantly think and debate, would be, what percentage of my work will be hands-on and what percentage of my work will be strategy? Because the myth of leadership and strategy is going away with startup coming in, wherein you may have to do jadu pocha to strategizing a financial statement for your next 100 clients. Now, somewhere I think the barrier or the line which is defining the differentiation between leadership and being hands-on, being extremely skill-oriented, to the space of cognitive intelligence and decision-making and making a difference to the world of your customer. I think that line of reference, differentiating the two, which was very starking for 30 years, seemingly moving out or moving, I think, fading away. That's one great issue I think all of us will face. Of course, I'm in the fag end of my career, having spent 26 years, maybe another 10 years formally in a corporate setup. I will have to spend time. But I think more importantly for all of you, your ability to understand where do you want to stay and stay relevant by utilizing, leveraging your skill set, which can be utilized for your advantage. That particular point of discussion will be the key for conversation. I'll give an example to explain this. Suppose you're sitting in your COO's weekly cadence meeting, and here comes your boss who asked you to present a view, and there are 5 direct of your boss sitting along with your boss reporting to the COO. In the first conversation or in the second conversation, if you're not value adding to a conversation of that particular debate of that weekly cadence, you may not get an invite third time. If you always have to go back and refer to people who work hands-on brutally rock bottom of your organization and you want to refer to them for every conversation which you are going to have, I think you have lost it already, because you may not have an opportunity to make your presence felt, because every conversation you have with your people is a judgmental statement they are drawing out of you. And that's true for a board member or a CEO when he does the quarterly business review with their board members. So I think our future seems to be very real, as Thomas Watson says, right? What is the real difference which you have to see between success and failure? And how do you really energize yourself from the group of talent which you have called people? I think that's going to be the reality. Then I'll give you some perspective on dichotomies, right? On one side, employees can't find a perfect job. After 3 years, 4 years of differentiating themselves from a project to program to managing a large shop to, doing marketing to sales to line and staff switch to, after 5th year, I think employees are getting bored and they want to take nirvana and go to Himalayas. There is an element of boredom which creeps in after 4, 5, 6 years of work experience, because somewhere there is a state of confusion to find himself or herself, to have your loyalty to the skill which you want to build and loyalty to the brand which you belong to or the sector which you are contributing. I think there is a huge confusion or a cloud circling around a lot of youngsters. They also don't know, because of the rapidity of change in skills, what is that they should do in terms of skill enhancement. A lot of people prescribe, including your guest lecture sessions, wherein you have to do certifications, you have to do latest and greatest certification, which can be relevant in your field of specialization. It's easier than done. That's the second confusion. 50% of the crowd who are in the organized sector working for an employer are confused whether they are in the right job. Early boredom we covered in terms of plateau of the job, and hardly the word called engagement, while there are a lot of articles and debate your professors must have had on employee experience, but are you really engaged employee? Many times you have to touch your heart and say, do you have, can you tell through your sizing of the data of employee perception survey, how many are genuinely working for you as an employer? So that's employees' confusion. I call it as employee challenges on one side. Employer is, still confused further. He or she doesn't know what is the best working environment. Do I need to have my cap of culture? Should I put a cap of employee experience? Should I put on the hat called LGBTQI and inclusive behavior? Should I do diversity and making sure integrity is my path for success? There is hell of a lot of confusion there. While you will find enough and more platform for the CEO to give you deliberation on all these pointers, I think they are not clear what is the best working environment which works for them. Then there is a huge struggle of who's your top talent, who's your mid-segment talent, and who's your bottom talent. Do you have enough people and coaches and mentors for them to be taken care? I think there is hell of a lot of confusion when it comes to employer and employees landscape. People on the other side, the employees in general, want to be connected. They want to organize themselves. They want to collaborate socially. And adding to the confusion, social media platforms are creating enough and more havoc for you to completely get confused in terms of how do you build the realities of future. There are few who have taken one line of sight to build a startup, and 99% of the startup fail. Now they're confused whether should I be in an ecosystem wherein I go with my native intelligence and thought process and start my own something which can make a WhatsApp happen. a Instagram happen, a Facebook happen. There is tons of such people out there. And how do I build productive results or return on investment when I talk about definition of talent and the role? As I think this was McKinsey study 2017. They said 2.7 million jobs will not exist in 2022 onwards. And they also said about 1.9 million jobs are newly created. Now, let me tell you, when they talk about jobs, what they really mean is the job roles which were, perishing of the order of 2.5 or 2.6 million, they will never exist back in the reality. The new 1.6 or 1.7 million, they're talking about, these are completely new roles. A teller will not remain in a banking environment. A peon is not required in a public sector environment. Those jobs are taken away and some other new roles will come in. Now, the point of view here is, am I belong to the new gen job requirement of the industries, or am I belong to those entrepreneurial set of people who can generate business ideas which can make the top line grow for that organization in the future? We don't know which space which we are currently going to go in the next few years, given that the landscape is changing so drastically thanks to technology. Now, all of us talk about technology being boon. I think I've seen enough and more instances of it being bane when it comes to talent. I'll skip these slides because I've covered most of it. I think one of the key factors for all of us as youngsters, between age profile of 5 to 10 years of work experience, I think my prescriptive mantra would be, you have no choice but to build as digital natives, build that digital skills, agnostic to which sector or industry segment you belong to, doesn't matter. You can be a VP or senior VP with an age profile of 40 plus. You want to survive, reskilling is the only mantra. Your ability to learn from three levels below you might make you employable. After 40s, try your luck to get a job. Okay. If you really want to get a job, try your luck after the age of 45 and ask yourself, do you have the capability of learning to learn? I think these are 3 moot points. And comfort zone at every stage of your career. We used to hear these terminologies when I was a student, and subsequently in my early life of the industry, I used to see people talking about midlife work crisis. Today, I think midlife is long gone. You have crisis every 3rd year in your work life. So I think realizing that comfort zone and making an investment for the next set of 3 years, I think makes all the difference for you. And this is a picture which I took, just outside a hotel in Paris. And I was so happy about this person selling about 20 items with him. And it was raining, drizzling, and he was attracting all the attentions from adults to a child of 3 years old who can see and get fascinated by his ability to sell things. I think multi-skilling is like that. Can you empower yourself by having maybe one or two skills, which is deep you as a specialist, and a horizontal spectrum of managerial competencies, which can cover and cutting across digitization, your pure play specialization, and managerial bandwidth at a given point in time to manage your business or your role in a given environment of a corporate setup. I think That's the key. Do you have the full stack of skills at a given point in time? Would be something which you need to constantly ask every third year of your career. Some of the key distractor for all of us in the future, I think it is not about not having an information and intelligence of creating data analytics. What you do with the data intelligence, data analytics, which can create business intelligence for your business, could be a great reality question which you need to answer. If you are able to answer that question, I think having access to trillions of data is good to have, but it just confuses you. And you have n number of early distractions for all of you to survive or perish out there in the industry, or given that you're going to start your own business or startup. Impatience, both from a standpoint of customer, as well as you being an entrepreneur or as a leader working in an organization. I think impatience seemingly is the only way to survive, and knowing it all, making the timely decision makes you survive by having your brand or that flag flying high. That's why no Fortune 500 in the last 30 years remained in their ranking. And the next set of 100 Fortune 500s might come from names which are unknown or never existed in the last 30 years. So I think that's one big investments which you need to constantly be aware, which are my detractors for my life as a business leader, as an entrepreneur, or as an employee, as a senior executive working in an organization. I think that's the distractor. What are the enhancers or the supporter for your survival? Maybe you need to constantly evolve, being with skill communities. Whether you are a VP or a senior VP, doesn't matter. You should answer a few pointed questions as to, can I compete with a given skill which is required bottommost in my hierarchy with a rookie who's come in that skill? Can I be equally competent? I think sometimes doing that dipstick will help you to survive being there in the skill community. Are you constantly practicing, learn to learn? Do you sometimes, fold your sleeves and then get into action by dirtying your hand? And do you know, in the limited space of 3-year horizon, what is your learning path? Doesn't matter where you belong to. I think these iconic statements really make you, or it's a wake-up call for all of us. I think the right-hand side of the slide will happen automatically. As Harsha Bogle said once, when Yuvraj Singh lost his form, it seems he went to the Australian cricket coach and he asked him, I don't know, all the players who are going in front of me or ahead of me, seemingly getting their 50s and 100s right. I'm not getting my 50s and 100s, and I've been trying really hard. And this is Harsha's story to me, okay, in one of my conversations with him when I called him for a leadership summit. And it seems the Australian coach told him, whether you are going 5 down or 6 down in a one-day match, doesn't matter. The reminder of 10 overs, 12 overs, 5 overs, 6 overs, just make sure you complete 50 overs and come. Just stay to the, stick to the crease. And Yuvraj just followed those instructions, and 50s and 100s came on his way. Many times as industry leaders, as people who are going to join industries, I think our complete focus on the end makes us certainly miserable in terms of not realizing those expectations, thereby getting frustration, and thereby taking nirvana and going to Himalayas after 10 years of work experience. Rather, you focus on the means. So the left-hand side of the slide is more important than the right-hand side, because rewards, your stock options, your millions of dollars of additional new income, and going public with your company will happen. You will get all kinds of funding. I think if you focus on the left-hand side, most of the time, I think we have monkeys on our back called ego, which gets groomed from monkey to a King Kong over a period of time because we think that we have got it right. And we continue to believe that we can make a difference to the world. I think your ability to have constant vigilance on what am I and a statement called long way to go might make us survive for a little more longer time than a decade in the organization or organized setup or your business. You might call it as design thinking. I think my calibrated view of design thinking comes from your ability to have the desire to make a change and looking forward for that path viability and constantly evaluating pilots feasibility. Don't start your farming business just because somebody has been extremely successful in farming and you still suddenly realize that your 2 crores of investment which you made in green farm has gone waste because your return on investment will not come in the first 5 years. That's for sure. Just because somebody gave you some brilliant idea and it has worked well for him may not work for you. Start small, do bite-sized learning, bite-sized opportunity mix, and your ability to see the pilot work very well and size it up. WhatsApp, it's not been created by having a mindset of $1 billion company to be created. No, I think the idea was $1 billion. Have some patience to work on the feasibility of the actions. In the organized sector, I think one of the big argument which you will continue to see, whether there is a perfect imbalance between life and work, or there is something called mental health and the physical health and the affordability to be sustainably employed, is something which I think a lot of employers and employees are talking today. People are even talking about early retirement, at the age of 40, 45, primarily because they strongly think that my ability to contribute to this world need not have to be formalized in an organized setup through my own shop or through my entrepreneurial journey or working for someone. I can do just about, doing a coaching session for a group of students, thereby fulfilling my need, what I need in life. I think a fair calibration of need and want, I think, has been realized in many. There is still a large amount of confusion there because people think that, am I able to survive with this kind of self-actualization motives at the tip of the pyramid, or I need to do something which can help me to complement for the next 30, 35 years if I survive, because mortality rate of death has come down drastically in India. So I think there is a conflict there in our mind. So finally, I think it's all about building credibility through skills, network, know your functional area, your expertise. Have, I always say the mathematical symbol called pi, have 2 specialization and 1 broad, generalization in whatever you do, right? And respect culture, because culture is something which I never understood in the last 60 years, 25, 26 years, and 45 years of my life. I think you will continue to explore what is this culture is all about, because it's changing so rapidly and you're not able to frame it very well. Okay, so thank you very much. I think I covered about 35 minutes of the 45 minutes which is allocated to me. If you think there are some relevant, pertinent questions which you need to ask. I know it was a rapid fire Saturday evening. You should be holding a glass with something interesting inside. I'm taking away that time. So I just thought I should be sincere.
So people who have questions, you can please raise your hand. So I'll be able to unmute you. And Nardesh, can go ahead.
Good evening, sir, and thank you for this wonderful session. It gave an interesting perspective to me. Like we are actually going through a course in strategy called Strategy for the Bottom of Pyramid, which is more from the consumer perspective. But it was interesting to know that from an organization's perspective also it can be applied. Strategies for the bottom of the pyramid. My question is on similar lines. For example, talking about the executive MBA. So we and particularly I, speaking from my own experience. So I am going through a transition phase in my life. So I have been a part of the old process where you have to belong to that process for a certain amount of time to reach the top. While now we are seeing transition towards a phase where we, as you rightly mentioned, we are competing right with the bottom of the pyramid. So if we don't add value right from the second or the third session, we are out of the of the picture. So my question is like, what are the couple of advices you can give to us, particularly this generation, who are actually in the transition phase of this era?
Yeah. So for the executive PGDM students, right, between 5 years to 20 years of experience who are sitting in this session, not for the flagship program students if they are sitting without any experience. This is not for them. This is for purely, the early raisers who saw the industry and took up a course and to really get that catalyst of increasing the speed of the reaction of your career, who came with that aspiration. This is for them. My suggestion: have faith for next 5 to 10 years of your career. Now, if you're already in the 5th year of career, about 15 years of formalized environment certainly can shape up your ability to take a decision on what you want in life. It's not late at all. Don't go with this myth of saying it's only 0.00001% of the entire population who has been an entrepreneur from day one, soon after, say, his 10th standard or 12th standard. We are talking about exceptional category of people. And you always find articles, reviews, discussions, intellectual conversations of only those people. Let me tell you, we all belong to an ordinary class of people. We are those 99.999% of the people, okay? So let's calibrate ourselves. Whatever said and done, at least in the Indian context, you need to have your ability to survive for a reasonable frame of time. And that frame of time could be 5 to 10 years, at best 15 years. That can give you a view of the kind of rainy seasons which you have seen. Now, I think between your 10th and 15th year is the time you need to take an informed decision whether I need to be an entrepreneur, or you should join hands with the founder who would like to give you big bucks, but you will be doing from the bottom of the pyramid in terms of skill, will, knowledge, experience, and you should be hands-on, making your entire hand into the dirt of understanding the business and customer, right? You should have that mind map. So prepping up after your 10th year, 11th year helps you. Sometime in the, between 10 and 15 years, I think you should take that very informed decision. Now, the problem with all of us is our society, our parents, our spouse, our siblings, our selective friends who are millionaires, right? Unfortunately, we have this tendency to compare ourselves with those selective friends, selective societal groups, right? And that's why we think that going to XLRI or ISB makes all our life different. In the 15th year, I'm a billionaire, right? Let me tell you, that's a myth. So what I want you to do is, and this is my suggestion, and I've never taken that call, and I'm still scared to take that call. I took one dip into the startup and I just came out in 6 months. There was millions of dollars which were there for sale. I couldn't survive because the culture never expected me to do things which I did in my past. So I think you want to dirty your hand between 10 and 15 years. Till then, I think an organized setup where there is consistency of implementation of skills, your leadership, ability to understand the ecosystem, customer world, and your societal norms of working for someone, you have to go through. That's my suggestion. Yeah, now there could be 1 or 2 or 3 of you in this group of 107 people out there, 105 people. You might have 1 or 2 or 3 of you don't qualify this statement. I'm telling you right away. You don't belong to this category of Janta. You are exceptional. Yeah, I have an IIM Indore student. I'll tell you, when I was there teaching pre-COVID, this boy in my first year session, so between first year and second year, I took them some 8 workshops on leadership, skills, analytics, future of business. And let me tell you, this boy started a small startup when he was in first year. But in the class of, I think, 250 people or 300, whatever number, he's the only example. Now, is he successful? It's been now 4 years now, ever since. Yeah, he got investments, but he might see another 5 more seasons or 6 more seasons before calling himself to be a unicorn. You understand? If everything goes well, it's easy to have those intellectual conversations wherein everybody talks about being a unicorn, but that's only few. You should remember that. And the real testing of the pudding happened in this pandemic situation. Real testing of the pudding happened, and people went back and recalibrated their mindset. That would be my advice to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for the response.
Any other questions, team?
Yes, you can.
Thank you for the session, sir. Sir, I have one question. In today's business world, startups are facing one of the challenge regarding, employee attrition rate. So after hiring an employee is staying inside the organization for a couple of years and then is leaving to some other big organization because employee is finding that working in a big organization is something, he's well settled like that. So how to overcome this challenge?
So the challenge of attrition is going to stay here because we are in India, and Indian economics will have consistent demand supply gaps, unlike developed nations. So you will continue to find a lot of people because there are opportunities, there is employable skills, there are employability for those people whose skills are hotter than others. You will find a fair degree of attrition happening. There could be certain waves wherein you find the attrition is spiking up. And that is the way of life going forward. You will have certain spikes and people leaving because there is a sudden demand, soon after pandemic, eventually got under control. You had a spike, and the spike will continue for some more time, but it will die down because when the demand supply balances again, you will have people not leaving those organizations, right? So attrition, is it good and bad? Is it good or bad? At any point in time, people who have significantly high amount of credibility in terms of building value to the organization, it's bad. If you belong to a category of skill sets, which can be easily replaceable at a lesser cost, at a minimum time, it is great for that organization. And as GE always said, right, my bottom of the organization have to be replaced every year, and that percentage can differ between 8 to 15%. And those are all good attrition to have. But unfortunately, that won't happen unless you take an informed decision on them. So attrition is good and bad both for a given organization. Just that it differs which side of the skill pool you are losing. I think if you are able to get that data right, you baseline the data and able to generate intelligence around, if you're losing the skill set which are not easily available out there in the market, then you will pay 30% additional money to get them on board. So you should be mindful of which side of the pole is really dipping or leaking bucket, right?
Yeah, that answers my question. Thank you, sir.
Pleasure. Yeah, Jagan.
Hello, sir. Thanks for the discussion. It's a wonderful discussion. Sir, the slide that caught my attention was the first slide where you were defining the work from sustenance to the self-actualization. Okay. When I was seeing that from the sustenance to self-actualization, I was able to, remind about this one particular concept that we studied, which is nothing but Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Okay, where we start from, say, the basic needs to the self-realization and also the self-esteem in between. Okay, which is the present condition of definition of work. So, what do you think, sir? Is this like the state of employees, needs are changing from time to time, from the past to the future, and how the like in the past when it was about meeting the needs, it was a necessity of upskilling, but in future it is nothing but a choice. Okay, whether they have to self-actualize them or not. So how do you think the human resource management is evolving from the past to the future?
It's a function of the changes in the landscape is a function of business opportunities, economy of scale, kind of education all of us have got, and education realizing in opportunities for employees at large, and our placement in the context of the global economics, right? Now, when I said sustenance to satisfaction to identity, I really meant that the first two are easily available for us. Sustenance, I'm talking about only organized sector, okay? So one can debate on the unorganized sector and still a long way to go there. A lot of changes which can happen and which needs to happen, at least in the Indian context. In the organized sector, you will continue to see people looking at less of sustenance satisfaction rather than identity, because the choices are made before they take its stream. Choices are made when they pick up a project. Choices are made when they take an industry vertical for their growth. Choices are made when they want to go to a particular country for a particular skill or a particular job or a particular leadership role. What I'm trying to impress here is, I think the clarity of thought there is emerging out very, very distinctly in pockets of conversations with people. People are very clear about what they want. May not be so in my generation. About 20 years back, when I passed out, I always looked at a brand which is iconic. I always felt that Tata's, the Birlas and the Kirloskars of the world was really impacting me, if not banking industry, right? In South Canada, in Karnataka, in South Canada, it was the banking industry. So people told me, either you join bank, you become a doctor or a chartered accountant or a lawyer. If nothing happens, then join a good branded private sector, right? A Tatas and the Birlas. And that's why Birlas happened to me in my early life. So remember, team, those mindsets have changed over a period of time. I think people are extremely calibrated about what they want in life. I'm finding that clarity of their thoughts emerging very, very clearly amongst youngsters. Now, what they really need is coaching them, whether those guiding path can make them really fulfill their own aspirations in the next 5, 10, 15 years time frame. I think that's the role a coach or a mentor has to play, so that informed decision which they are taking, they don't regret if they fail, they don't celebrate if they succeed. When I say they don't celebrate, you need not have to celebrate too much about what you've achieved in life. Yeah, once in a while you can, because you don't know what is your next 3 years. You might celebrate today and just to realize that 3 years later, you're just shut down. from a skill perspective or an organization perspective or an entrepreneurship perspective, right? I think that would be my thought process when I speak about identity. Any other questions, Steve?
Guys, do you have any other questions? And I think we are done with the questions.
Oh, wonderful. So in case you have any other questions, you can write to me on LinkedIn, both about whether this was helpful, not helpful, of spending time with you. I've mentioned that on the chat window. You can connect and let me know. And if you still have some questions which you want to discuss at any point in time, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn and then on my personal email ID, which I'm sharing here. Thank you so much.
And I think Jugal has one question. He has raised his hand again.
So I have one last question. I'm curious about this question. Can you let me know the differences that you have found between a student, an employee from top B school and an employee from normal B school?
They bring in a lot of, let me tell you, I teach both the category of people. In fact, today afternoon, I had a session in a well-known IIM, okay? And I'm talking to you today. And morning, I had a session with the unknown B school, which is a very, very unknown B school. I think the native intelligence and the cognitive complexity in a relatively better B school is far higher because they come with that native intelligence and whatever IQ you call it as, it's slightly better. And their ability to refine thoughts, disseminate thoughts, precipitates those thoughts into reality becomes that much easier for them. Because that environment creates them to be what they want to be. You have professors, you have visiting faculties, you have guest faculties coming in and really sharpening the saw from time to time, right? So I think there is native intelligence, cognitive complexity levels are higher, and their outlook becomes that much sharper because of the environment. Okay, now here comes the so-called unknown B schools, or not so famous B schools, or not affordably rich B schools in terms of richness in talent, right? They may not bring in so much of skills, but they have the hunger and the will. And I've seen at about 5th year or 10th year of your career, you get calibrated to equal levels because they bring in that view that my will, my commitment, my hard work can take away or can value add to what I lost in terms of my not being in a best known B school. I'm not from a best known B school, but I've been teaching in best known B school across the globe for the last 20 years. So I'm from an unknown B school. I'm from a vernacular medium myself. So, I've learned the ropes by being there in the best known organization by working with those people. So sometimes these are informed decisions one has to take and never take it lightly because you have hooligans around you who can, for a lack of a better word, I'm using hooligan. They really don't mean that. I really don't mean that. They're far better in terms of their outlook and their IQ standards, or even their EQ and their ability to be socially quotient, right? You have to really make up for that. Hard work makes you look smart, not otherwise. You can't do smart work. That's a myth. By working really, really hard, you look smart. If you don't work hard, you don't look smart at all. It's a myth.
Yeah, I agree. Yes, I agree. Thank you, sir. That answers my question.
Okay. All right, team. Thank you very much. You have a great Saturday evening.
Thank you. Thank you.
All the best.
Thank you so much, sir.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye, sir.
Thank you, sir.